Alright, today we're going to be making a brand new tier list, ranking every meta unit in Anime Last Stand, as of the most recent One Piece update. Do keep in mind the rankings in this video are just my opinion, but I still hope you found the video helpful. If you do, maybe leave a like or subscribe. But anyways, let's get into it. Starting off with the brand new One Piece units from Update 63, we have Shanks. Now Shanks is pretty good. This guy is actually very underrated in my opinion. Especially when the update first dropped, a lot of people were saying he was not that great. And his DPS is just kind of okay. His damage can get very high, especially with his aura passive. He has like a bubble around him, and if enemies are in it, they take more damage. His own DPS is definitely not that bad, but most of his value comes from his stalling anyway. Shanks has the stun passive, which did get buffed this update when they removed Conquered from the game. At least from most units, they kind of kept some in the game, like Akano and Kaido still have Conquered for some reason. But yeah, Shanks has a very strong stun. He has also like a walk back passive, and two abilities. One of them is like a kind of mini nuke and a stun. The other one is also kind of like a mini nuke and a rewind and stun. I would say meta overall, very good for everything. Next up we have Ace, and there's not too much to talk about with this guy. He's just kind of like a burn DPS unit. He's pretty cheap and a heal unit, so pretty okay. He's not meta early though, because most of his kit kind of needs time to ramp up. A lot of his damage potential is unlocked after he applies burn to a bunch of things, like he's based on burning other stuff. If he applies burn a bunch, he gets way stronger. Over time, he can be very good for his own DPS, but overall, kinda good. Not the best unit in the game. Garp is very strong for just raw damage. He doesn't have too much supporting value or anything. He just has a lot of raw damage and a couple of nuke abilities, which are very interesting. I have a whole video on like how he can reach crazy numbers with hundreds of billions of damage. This guy is mostly good for his nuking abilities, which one of them he gets by like 100k cash invested. The other one you have to kind of max him out. What you can do is put him on none and kind of keep buffing him with that ability, and also copy with like a Yuta or Meliodas or something. I'd say he's very strong, really good raw damage, really good nuking abilities, especially if you know what to do with the final one and you kind of copy his damage onto somebody else. You can do like billions and billions, but overall, going in the meta overall tier. I think her name is Yamato, the raid unit. She's also going to be meta overall. She has two different forms. One of them is Bolt and one of them is Blizzard. The Bolt one has really good raw DPS, especially with the right team. And Blizzard in general is just also really good. So overall definitely very strong and can reach some crazy damage numbers in the Bolt form. Blue Admiral is definitely going to be a support unit. This guy's damage is not too great, but he does have a stronger version of Blizzard and Freeze, which is going to be pretty strong for slowing down the enemies. Once you max him out, he does also have a like map-wide time-stopping ability kinda. Definitely going in support tier, mostly just for kind of slowing down enemies, but his own damage is not that bad either. The new boss event guy, Mihawk. I'd say definitely meta overall. Especially really good in early game, because he has so much range, and if you know how to use his passives, pretty much if you play something very far away from him, but like within a certain amount of his range, he does more damage. If you know how to build this guy and know how to use him, he's very, very strong. Early waves because he's very cheap and a heal unit, he's also very good for meta early. Once you max him out, he does also ramp up to really high DPS, so for raw damage and if you know how to build him, I'd say meta overall can be good for anything. Now apart from the One Piece units, we do have a couple changes with the old ones. So Tanjiro here actually got a rework. Before he used to have the like breathing transformation ability, which you would only unlock on like kind of final upgrade. You had to max him out to get value out of this guy, but they reworked him to now have access to that ability on placement. And the way it works now, it used to let you choose between the 4 forms that he has. He has like a bunch of different forms that kind of change his stats and everything. Now it kind of forces you to cycle between them, which means his performance is very volatile now. It fluctuates a lot depending on which form you're in, so I don't know. I'd say overall he got buffed. They did buff his final damage and everything. Very good. I'd put him towards the top of the good tier now, but kind of conditional. Griffith also got a small change. When you trigger the Eclipse on him, it's going to do 5 billion damage every second. That's kind of a new balance change to keep in mind. But for this version of Griffith, we have the like pre-sacrifice mode. This one kind of represents my overall ranking of the unit, if you should use him on your team or whatever. I'd say overall Griffith as a unit is meta overall, and probably going like right here. Very good. And we'll talk about the individual forms right now. So the dark form, good as like an infinite unit. He gets stronger if you sacrifice more cash into him. He's overall a really good DPS damage dealer, and can spawn the Eclipse if you run him with guts as well. The light mode is going to be a support, kind of a damage buffer for the entire map, very good for buffing your entire team. For every other unit we're about to rank, we've already kind of explained them a lot in other tier list videos, so if you want an explanation, you can kind of find them somewhere on this channel. But we're going to try and keep it pretty brief today. So Guts is a full AoE damage dealer, very good, meta overall for sure. Inuyasha is kind of a raw damage dealer with like a weird RNG passive. Nothing too crazy. EA is also a raw damage dealer with Black Flame. He can be kind of conditionally good if you run him with the right build. Saitama, raw DPS with strong nuking abilities, meta overall for sure. Kirito is just a meta DPS with abilities that give him different forms you can choose between. His DPS is very good. He's also really good for tournament right now because he has a nuke with a local cooldown, not a global cooldown, which means you can kind of sell him and replace him over and over and kind of spam the nuke if you have the cash for it. So he's good for tournament and meta overall. Stark is just a full AoE DPS unit going in the good tier. Merliona, full AoE burn buffer going in the good tier. Delta is definitely going meta early. She is a cheap full AoE hybrid placement unit, very good DPS, and can go into a rage mode thing where she does even more. Very solid. Burn is definitely meta overall, pretty cheap, really good damage, very strong ability if you have the ability on auto, very good DPS, and also has a small buff, so kind of a support as well. Really good for everything, jack of all trades. Freerun is probably the best unit in the game right now. Cheap placement cost, really good damage, pretty okay godly lead. Very good abilities, very good passives, everything's really crazy about her. Very good for nuking especially. And I don't know, just meta overall, top of the game right now. Bell is just a water buffer, kind of a conditional support with okay DPS. Erza is a water DPS unit, pretty cheap and pretty good damage. The first evolution of Law, just a progressive support, he has a pretty cheap rewind. Virgil is a meta infinite unit for his nuke. Yorichi is a pretty good boss killer. Dante is just kind of a meta DPS unit going in meta overall. Megumin's a meta infinite unit for her nuking abilities. Same thing for Gogeta Blue. Vegeta is just an okay DPS going in the good tier. Granola also has pretty good damage and a couple damage buffing passives. Broly does really good damage, but he takes a long time to ramp up. The Blue Gogeta Fusion, definitely meta overall, very strong damage and nuking abilities. Makima is a meta infinite unit, very expensive to fully get going, but has a very strong nuke. Haki is a meta infinite unit, and right now he's apparently bugged. He can one-shot any boss with his ability, so keep that in mind, he's very good right now. Kefla is just a good damage unit. Meliodas definitely meta overall, pretty good damage and a bunch of supporting stuff. Kari can do really good damage with his ability, but has limited uptime. Genji is definitely meta overall, very good damage unit and also a bleed buffer. Angel's a meta infinite unit, very expensive. Nami is a cheap hybrid unit with really good damage. Gilgamesh is good for everything, really strong passives, really strong abilities, really good godly lead, really good damage. I don't know, not much to say about this guy. One of the best in the game right now. Yuno is a cheap hybrid unit, really good damage and slow. Asta is a pretty good damage unit. Julius is a meta infinite unit with a nuke that takes a while to ramp up. Bone Demon is a cheap hybrid unit. Water Shinra is a water buffer and also has the blizzard effect. Dark Shinra is not very good, but he does have Despair and a pretty okay nuke. Neutral Shinra, meta infinite unit, he has a pretty okay nuke and an ability cooldown resetter. His death can buff a random unit in her range and has the blizzard effect. Light Shinra is not very good, just kind of bolt raw DPS. Wukong kind of falling off, all he has is raw damage. Twin Gun Reaper, cheap hybrid unit. Gogeta, meta infinite unit for chipping down bosses. Ishtar, cheap hybrid unit. Noel, cheap hybrid unit. Shisui can scale off the strongest unit in his range. Wongling, meta infinite unit, very strong nuke, very strong rewind, very strong ability reset. Anos, meta infinite for his nuke, takes a very long time to get going. Quincy King is full AoE with better fear and can buff damage and range. Pride is really falling off. He can buff fire units, but his damage is not very good. Isagi is a damage buffer. Arthur, meta infinite for his nuking ability. Dungeon Wu, very strong for everything right now, but you actually have to pay attention when using him. Takes a lot of manual play, so not very good for AFK farming. Law, meta overall for sure. Very good damage and very good supporting passives and rewinds. Judge Guy has pretty good uptime on the extinguished effect. Boot Hill, cheap hybrid unit. Caster Saber, damage buffer. Dark Sakura, pretty good damage and has a small buff. Ichigo, really good for raw damage. Cheap placement cost and takes a while to fully ramp up, but is very, very strong. Maka, cheap hybrid unit. Cosmic Garo, really only used for the godly lead nowadays, but very strong buff for raw damage units. Leafa can reduce SPA and buff nature units. Giorno, meta infinite unit for his rewind ability. The support mode Kurumi, meta infinite unit. Sukuna, meta infinite for his nuking abilities. Uchi can rewind enemies and reset ability cooldowns. Geto, meta infinite for summons and nuking. Erwin, damage buffer. Maki, cheap hybrid unit, in my opinion the best placement damage in the game. Madoka, meta infinite for her nuke. Luffy, meta overall, but nothing too crazy. He does have a pretty good godly lead for everything, but he's very expensive to max out. Fire Shinra, not very good. He can buff other fire units, but his damage is really bad. Itadori, meta overall for sure. Really good damage, especially a very good boss killer. Yuta, definitely meta overall, and he's probably always going to be. He can copy damage of other units, his damage himself is very good. He has very strong nuking abilities and supporting value from Rika. Kashimo, okay bold damage unit. Dio, very strong support for SPA reduction and time stopping. Yujo, very expensive unit with high damage and good abilities. Nature Shinra, very similar to the support mode of Kurumi. Goku kind of falling off, pretty good raw damage and nuking ability, but that's about all. Kaido is a good support with the Daze passive, and for some reason he still has Conquered, even though that's supposed to be removed from the game. I don't know. Subaru, damage buffer. Azumaki, cheap hybrid unit with a very good slow passive. Aizen can make enemies take a lot more damage. Shadow, definitely meta overall. Very expensive to max out, very good damage, very good at nuking abilities as well. Most of his value comes from the passive where he applies Permanent Despair. After 20 seconds of an enemy being in his range, Permanent Despair is very good. Gojo has a bubble around him that slows enemies down. He also has a time stop and nuking ability. Madara, meta infinite for his rewind ability. And finally the buff mode of Kurumi. Pretty obvious from the name, she's just a damage buffer. There we go. I also forgot Conrad. This guy's meta infinite because he has a nuke that used to have a cap, but now they removed it I think. So if you use his nuke over and over, it can kind of infinitely scale, so pretty good. Takes a long time to ramp up though. Here we have the final rankings. I tried to be pretty quick in this video to save time. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments, along with whatever you would change if you disagree with the list. I think it looks pretty good, but at the end of the day, this is all just my opinion based on the testing I've done, so I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. Anyways, thank you to my channel members for making this video possible. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next one. Have a great day.